So earlier on, I mentioned that there's no class or job system in the entire game, and how that kind of conflicts with a base leveling system. I'm a level 6 Blink! I don't know what, but I'm a level 6 of it. There's other things too. When a game is skill-based, in terms of like combat, where I can actually dodge incoming attacks and taking damage is actually a really big deal, there's no Trinity. The Holy Trinity is tank, healer, DPS. That's what they would call it. That's the old standard fare thing. It appears that wasn't even a thought, right? And it kind of makes sense in terms of Sword Art Online, because Sword Art Online is a lot more like games like Blade and Soul, Guild Wars 2, Terra. These games are more skill-based. You can dodge everything. If you're taking damage, it's usually because you're doing something wrong. It's exactly how Sword Art Online plays out as well, which means there's no tanks, no healers, no DPS. They kind of joke about characters having a class or something like that, but that was just because the skills that he chose were the ones that would fit that archetype. So this situation is even worse in the argument that it's an open world sandbox, because in a game where you can dodge damage, defensive skills and other stats other than dealing more damage are usually a waste of time. The only reason why you take those stats is if you want to make things take longer. I could actually make strong arguments in games like Guild Wars 2, and hell, right now the most important stat in Blade and Soul apparently is crit. Defensive stats, the monster lives longer, he has more of a chance to kill somebody. The longer the monsters live, dead things deal less damage. Let's just put it like that. So you have all of this structure for this open world sandbox, but you have something that even further sets aside the need for any other stats. It's weird. They don't really talk about it, and this is not even something that I've really known until I've started playing games that don't have a Trinity. But even the games that have a Trinity, you might as well just look at your armor's item level to determine whether or not if your performance is going to be better. It's almost like it all might as well just be one stat in all of these games. An open world sandbox game, no. Your stats matter more. These games, nah, you just have to be X level, and you have to have item level X, or and there you go. If it's a purple or whatever, you meet the requirements. And in a game where you can dodge damage, what the hell does it matter if I raise how much HP I have? It's much better spent in dealing damage, because I'm always doing that. And if I'm taking damage, it's because I fucked up. Case in point, in Guild Wars 2, you go anything other than Berserker, you're a noob. In Blade and Soul, anything other than crit, you're a noob, apparently. I'm pretty sure the same thing is probably true for Terra. I don't know how their itemization works, but if you can dodge or mitigate or ignore, you will. Players always do it. If you can ignore it, it'll be ignored. And with that said, just talking about the tank, healer, and DPS trinity, I feel that it's actually kind of a bad thing that those things have been removed. I know this is a side argument, this is a side detail. I like the end results of not having a trinity, but it creates this sort of it creates a sort of weird Zergish behavior where everybody's out on their own. Everybody's together, but they're not really working together as a team. It happens too often with things like dungeons and stuff like that. So one thing that is kind of nice about Sword Art Online that allows for a little bit of a dynamic teamwork effort is this thing called switching, which is it's something that I believe actually exists in Blade and Soul, where one person does a move that can stun the monster and then switches with the other person, giving that person an instant attack to be able to do something. So it's like you switch places with somebody, and they have their cooldowns, and they have their ability to come in and do what they need to do. So there is a teamwork aspect there that maybe should exist in more MMOs, especially as they become more and more action-oriented. I haven't really had a chance to experience this, but Sword Art Online does make switching like a pretty interesting aspect of the game, which I thought maybe that needs to happen a little bit more in non-Trinity-based games to create a greater sense of teamwork. I actually like the idea a lot. I feel that everybody should be able to deal damage, though. Like, I would love nothing more than for something like Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft to just make it so everybody's a damage dealer by default. Even the tanks, everybody. Everybody there is expected to be dealing damage, but you also have the side goal of healing and tanking and dealing damage. I guess it would be support at that point. But I just feel that the problem with the Trinity comes from not everybody is as good at damage. Even though some people can deal damage, they're not good at it, which I think has always been really shitty. Okay? Oh, I want to be a tank. Now I gotta take 8 times longer to kill this monster. Oh, well, I guess that's my punishment for my choice. That's bullshit. That's always been bullshit. And this situation will only be further exaggerated as technology continues to get better and better. You see, it was a lot easier a long time ago to just crunch numbers than it was to actually pay attention to the character's position, whether they're dodging the attack, and all this extra stuff. But as servers and computers get faster, as everybody's able to connect, your combat is also going to have a side effect of becoming more action-oriented. Dodging stuff is going to become more visceral. So as technology gets better and better, the Trinity is also going to have other problems as well. Because if I could dodge damage, why do I need healing? And if I could dodge damage, why do I need a tank? So there's other things at play here that kind of disallow the Trinity from being as popular. Okay, all right, rant over. So a bit into the second episode, they actually talk a little bit about the grouping system. And the grouping system is you make multiple parties of 6 and combine them, which is another aspect that makes it a lot more like Final Fantasy, which is called forming alliances. And that's exactly what they do in Sword Art Online. So Sword Art Online is a game where you could take two 6-man groups, and then the leader of each of them can connect themselves and join an alliance, and then you can alliance maybe a whole bunch of them to create a raid group for like a full 24-man or 40-man or whatever. As far as I can tell, outside of switching, there's really no other reason to be in a group except for maybe if they have some weird arbitrary rule of the number of people who can enter a boss arena or something. But they don't talk about any of that. As far as I can tell, in reality, these games end up just being a sort of a non-Trinity style tactics by number, or Zerg rushes at worst, something along those lines. Like that's pretty much what these games end up being. The more you bring to the fight, the better you are because everybody can kill the monster faster. So I guess very early on, one of the things they talk about is that 2,000 players died in the game already. Like it's episode 2, 2,000 people died. I personally think that the vast majority of them, outside of the ones that were killed by game mechanics, were probably killed by other players. So it's worth mentioning the entire game is full out open world PvP. That sucks. That's pretty fucking masochistic. There are safe zones in town, but there are even ways to kill people regardless of that. Fuck that. That sucks. But, hey, if you're gonna have a game like this, you might as well open world PvP everything. And that's not even faction based. Anyone at any point in time can just decide to run a sword through your back. And there you go. At least, in World of Warcraft, if you're not gonna get killed by your own Horde players, like if you're on Horde, you're safe. You're not gonna get killed by other Horde players. Nope. No such security in Sword Art Online. Stresses me out just thinking about it. And with that said, it stresses me out because I know that the very second my foot steps outside of a safe zone, dead. Because that's exactly what I've experienced before. You got safe zones. Safe zones are nothing but borders where you die. But maybe, because it was actually murder. I don't know. But 2,000 players did not get killed by wild boars. Fuck. I imagine the vast majority of the largest number of people who died was probably because somebody tried to pull their helmet off or they starved to death or something in their apartments. That sucks. So once again, I'm going to just briefly mention this storyline. He goes, they snagged all of the good hunting spots and all of the easy quests. This was actual dialogue, like in both the English dub and the Japanese subtitles. What? Like, first of all, quests are instanced to each character in all of these games. So unless they have some kind of weird quest system where you can steal quests from people, fuck that. And hunting spots. So here we are again. Hunting spots are indicative of what you would have in a game like Final Fantasy XI. This is like EverQuest level shit that he's talking about here. Hunting spots, all the really good hunting spots, those are places where you set up camp, and you can claim that camp by setting a party there, and then one person grabs a monster and brings it back, and you kill it, right? That kind of grindiness of killing mobs for leveling up is once again completely contradicts this idea of an open world sandbox game. So otherwise, it's very difficult to quote unquote snag a hunting spot. So I thought that here we go again. Is the game open world sandbox, or is it a theme park? I believe it's a theme park, but they throw in stuff like this that just kind of throws me off the track. Like, well, what are you talking about? Open world sandbox or not? How do you snag quests? This problem. How do you snag quests from other players? This problem does not exist in any game I have ever seen, outside of very, very, very strange scenarios. But yeah, and with that said, questing to level up versus hunting to level up are two entirely different paradigms. This is EverQuest and Final Fantasy XI versus World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV. Doing quests in large amounts in large amounts of quests, and it's more solo friendly. You can actually do things. EverQuest, you have to have a group, you have to have dependable players, and you have to find monsters that are just tough enough where you can take them down as a group, and you continually pull them until you level up. You can't mix the two because everyone will always just do the quests. The hunting spots would be completely irrelevant. It never works out in such a way where you can do quests or you can do EverQuest. So with that said. Yeah, hey, what would you do? Would you rather do a bunch of quests to level up? Or would you rather wait an hour to get, 6 people together, go to a spot, and then have monsters pulled to you continuously for about 3 hours in order to level up? Don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed that style of play, but that shit is tedious. And we know that there are quests in the game. So now that we know about the PvP, let's take a note on the beta testers themselves. One of the things that kind of cracks me up in the first episode is that they make it abundantly clear that the beta testers never even got close to defeating any of the content. Like, he got 25 floors, or was it 8 floors? I think Kirito says 8 floors at one point, and then further in the story, he implies that he was all the way up to 40 floors or some shit, right? It took him months to get 8 floors up. Bullshit. But it took him months to do it. The game is so perfect that it didn't need testing for 75% of the game, and I'm highballing it, right? That's crazy. Which is another thing too. There were no indications that anyone snooped the files in the game ahead of time. So there was nobody, looking through the game files and figuring out all of this stuff, which right now is so common, it's expected. You can't have a fucking MMORPG release a patch without everybody looking at the files and figuring everything out before. So that leads me to believe that this game's structure is structured very differently from any of current existing technology. In other words, it's very possible the client doesn't actually have any of the files. Weird. And with that said, this would not be possible without a much, much faster internet connection, but it would have to be really fast. I'm talking, gigabit minimum, something like that, and actually utilizing that kind of speed in order to be able to do anything, and even that would still be pretty slow because a game like Sword Art Online would probably be, half a terabyte in size. So the fact that they didn't have packet snoopers and they didn't have anybody checking out the files in the game, telling everybody what's going on, or for that matter, figuring out ways to communicate with people out, on the outside. Maybe the manga covers this stuff, but I didn't see any indications of any of this stuff in the anime series. But it would happen. It literally took a month for them to just find a boss in the first tower. The tower is huge. Can you imagine having to take a month? A month is what usually takes you to get a character to the max level in like World of Warcraft or something. They say 12 days of gameplay is the average time. They had to actually leave early in the day to reach the tower from the city that was super close to the tower. That's how big that space was. It's freaking ridiculous. If it took them that long to get from the city to the tower, I can't imagine how long it took for them to get to the top of the tower. I'm just going to come out and say this. On top of that, they had this game mechanic called the last attack bonus, where the person who strikes the boss last somehow gets a bonus. That's ridiculous. That is a terrible game mechanic. Maybe everything about this game is masochistic as fuck. Do you realize that a game mechanic like that would actually lead to players PKing each other just so they can have a chance to be the one to kill the boss? I mean, this is especially true if you're doing pickup groups with fucking raid play, like a whole entire raid. All it takes is one jackass to kill you and then hit the boss for the last hit, and yay, I got the item. But I guess that wouldn't happen in full-out open-world PvP. How the fuck is anybody not accidentally killing each other, popping off weird skills? I don't know. The thing is that last attack bonus is not a cool game mechanic. That just blows my mind that would even ever be considered. So, in closing, I'm just going to come out and say, Sword Art Online is one of the most masochistic games I've ever seen. Period. It's masochistic as fuck. They take a leveling system, you still have skills. A lot of it doesn't even make sense. So, a hybrid level and skill system exists basically to slow you down arbitrarily. It's not fun. Whenever those things are combined, it's like combining two different leveling systems. It's not fun. It's never been fun. It doesn't work. So, but I think either way, like the game really actually just has an identity crisis. I bet if I was to play any of the actual Sword Art Online games, they don't really work that way. But the anime does. Okay, so my takeaway from this entire thing, after paying attention to all these details and kind of going on a rant and talking about it, my takeaway from this is that I would actually like to explore the idea more. So I'm going to just shoot this out here, okay? All right. Just imagine, let's take World of Warcraft, right? Everybody's complaining, how everybody's complaining about, like, oh, it's lost its luster. If Blizzard ever really wanted to make a true spectacle, I think this would be a really good way to do it. Okay, so here's what they'd have to do. You make, like, a very small number, maybe just one server. Fuck it, just one hardcore World of Warcraft server. Okay, the server would have permadeath, open world PvP. All monsters are elites. All elites have buffed stats. You cannot progress from one expansion to the next without completing all of the previous expansion content. Okay. Example, you can't do Cataclysm without downing the Lich King. So, what you have here is like this really ultra hardcore version of World of Warcraft, where you can't even really solo, and if you die once, you lose your character. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that's not fun, that sounds terrible. Well, neither is Sword Art Online. Sword Art Online shows, if there's anything to be learned from this, is that it's a spectacle. It's something that you do for entertainment of other people who are watching you play, okay? So you have characters with zero plot armor because it doesn't exist by design. Suspense every step of the way. People streaming the game. People are playing. You can do cash and prizes for world firsts on bosses. So like the first guys who down the Lich King actually get like $1,000 each or some shit like that. You just make it this big spectacle, right? And can you imagine the first group to step into Blackrock depths knowing that if their party wipes, that's it for them? That's it? You want to talk about fucking crazy? And they could be killed by the other faction, so if Alliance shows up, they have this really tense moment where they're like staring each other down, should we fucking try to kill them or not? And you see like half of them get killed, I'd be watching that. That would be fucking amazing to watch. It would be like a Twitch fucking Game of Thrones. So we would learn all these players, the world's best players, and it would be a spectacle. And that's exactly what Sword Art Online shows us, is that it's not a fun game, it's just fun to watch what happens.